Hey y'all, what's going on? I am finally back on T Predicts with another video. I know it has been a while. I've been kind of focusing on my main channel, Fun Times with T, a little bit, so I haven't had time to make a T Predicts video, but here I am. And the reason why I'm back is because I've noticed my last silly season video is actually doing kind of well. It's above 800 views, which is the highest viewed video on this channel, so I figured it was time to make a updated silly season video, because that was a way too early one. This is my actual NASCAR silly season prediction video. Now that I've been able to see about roughly half the season, it hasn't been half yet, but we've seen all the Fox races, so now we're on NBC, so pretty much half. So we're going to start off the teams that I think are going to stay the same right over here. Probably the more notable names. I mean, there's not really much that's notable on here. Obviously, you can see teams who are on here, which kind of shows that I'm going to be changing them, like Stewart-Haas Racing. The 10 team's not on there. Other Stewart-Haas Racing teams are on there, like Harvick, Custer, and Briscoe. I don't think they're going to be changing teams. Another thing of note is that for the 43 of Jra Motorsports, I think they will be switching to Toyota. It's very heavily rumored. I think that's a strong possibility that's going to happen. That's the only change out of all these teams I think is going to happen. So to start the changes, I'm going to start off with the charters that I think are going to change hands. The first one is the 51 charter for Jra Racing going to the 2311 Racing Team's second car. The reason why I think it's the 51, I think they're still going to, Jra Racing going on the 51 car next year. However, Jra Motorsports and Jra Racing have an alliance for that 51 charter so that Jra Racing can operate under the 51 charter. I think Jra Motorsports takes the charter and either sells it or leases it to 2311 Racing because they will both be Toyotas. As for what that second number will be, I'll tell you what I think when I come up with my changes in 2021 section. When I get to that number, what I think it's going to be. The next charter is another Jra Racing charter. The 53 goes to the 51. So I think Jra Racing's still going to have, what, probably 3 charters next year, I think. That's what it sounds like they're planning on running. So, I mean, obviously, I think the 53 team is going to go away, probably. There's no way they're running 4 teams next year. There's no way. Especially guaranteed they can get some more money out if they sell a charter. I mean, for Jra Racing, I think it might be smarter for them to actually just sell a charter. You'd make a lot of money. But, yeah, I just have it switching in team because the 51 had to leave. I could have just went 53 to 2311 Racing, but that's how I think it would actually work. The next charter was a charter that was leased. It is the 99 charter going back to Jra Motorsports, the 70, which would go to the 77 team, because I don't think they're going to operate 3 teams next year, but I think they still want to own 3 charters, which is why the next one they have changing hands is the 77 charter being leased to Trackhouse Racing and the 99 team. Obviously, you can only lease a charter once per year, so I think Spire and Trackhouse are probably going to have a partnership for at least 2 years, possibly 3 years to lease another charter. I know there was rumors a long time ago, like before the season even began, that Spire and the Money Racing team were going to team up so they can use one of their charters next year. But since then, we have heard nothing about the Money Racing team, so I think it is very safe to say that that's not going to happen. And the final charter I have changing hands is Stewart-Haas Racing's 10 team selling the charter to the 88 of JRM. That's a big one. I have Stewart-Haas Racing downsizing to 3 cars next year. You look at their performance this year. It's bad. It's other than Kevin Harvick, who has not won a race, so his performance is also bad. But because he's Kevin Harvick, he can still run well. Eric Almirola, Cole Custer, and Chase Briscoe do not look good. I mean, Eric Almirola is like barely ahead of Anthony Alfredo in points. He's like 29th in points. These are teams that are used to getting 4 cars in the playoffs. Last year, 4 cars in the playoffs. Yes, it was Cole Custer's miracle win at Kentucky that got 4 cars in, but they still got 4 cars in the playoffs last year. This year, they're going to get 1. I mean, unless one of those other 3 pull a magical win out of nowhere, maybe at Daytona, they could get 2. But they're only going to likely get 1, and that's Kevin Harvick. And who knows if Stewart-Haas Racing is even going to get a win this year. I mean, they just look so far off. I think for the best of the team, sell the charter, downsize to 3 teams. The reason why I have the 10 teams, I think Eric Almirola and Smithfield is going to leave Stewart-Haas Racing at the end of the year. I think Eric Almirola might have a better opportunity, and that might be coming up in a little bit than Stewart-Haas Racing, which I would have not said was a better opportunity before this year, but looking how Stewart-Haas Racing is, I think it's a better opportunity. Plus, I think Tony Stewart has got his priorities elsewhere. SRX Racing. I think he's got his priorities there. It just makes sense that Stewart-Haas Racing downsizes to 3 teams. And the charter they sell to is Dale Jr. and Jra Motorsports. I think JRM's going Cup Series racing next year. It's not confirmed, but like he said, it's now or never. And I think for Junior, I think he has the urge to go Cup racing, and you could see how good Hendrick Motorsports is this year. I mean, anyone who's coming up through JRM knows that they're not going to have an opportunity at Hendrick Motorsports. So if JRM opens up, then that could become a 4-car team, and then there's a whole other realm of possibilities there. So I just think it all makes sense for Junior to go Cup Series racing and to get a charter. It's good for him. Now, there are a couple of competitive teams I have that are not going to have a charter that I'll get to at the end of the video that you'll see, because Colleague Racing already said they're going full-time race ticket. You didn't see me give them a charter because I don't know. I don't think all the competitive teams that want to go full-time racing are going to get a charter. I really don't. All right, so now time for the drivers changing in 2021. For the one team of Chip Ganassi Racing, I have Matt DiBenedetto going there. I think even though Brad Keselowski is probably going to leave the 2 team, which obviously saw changes or staying the same in 2022, that he wasn't on that list, I still think Matt DiBenedetto is not going to be coming back to Penske, especially if he doesn't have a win. I think there's going to be sponsorship coming in. That might be rumored where someone I mentioned earlier might be going, that I'll get to in a little bit. And obviously Austin Cindric's going there. So there's still going to be a spot open at either Wood Brothers or Team Penske. I mean, as you can see with the next prediction, you'll see who I have going to Penske. But DiBenedetto to Chip Ganassi Racing is something I've been predicting since last year when I thought Austin Cindric was going to move up. And I was wrong on that. They waited a year on him. Obviously, I think Chip Ganassi Racing is probably a step down. But the way Chevrolet is looking, Chip Ganassi Racing, I think, is going to be better in the later half of the season if Chevrolet continues the dominance with Hendrick Motorsports. Because I think Chip Ganassi Racing is just going to have to get better. And Matt DiBenedetto is a good driver, and I think would be pretty successful at Chip Ganassi Racing. I think he would definitely at least make the playoffs. I think he's going to have to get a win eventually. And he's definitely going to need a competitive ride. But I just hope he finds a place that he can stay for a while, because he has not found that in his career. So hopefully wherever he goes next year, whether he stays at Wood Brothers or goes to Penske somehow or goes somewhere else, that he finds a spot that he can stay for several years. The next change is the 2 team of Team Penske. I have Austin Cindric going there. And I know Austin Cindric was already confirmed to go to the 21 team, but that was when they weren't taking into account that Brad Keselowski could possibly leave after 2021. They did not expect that. With Brad Keselowski expected to leave Team Penske to go to Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, which is what it's probably going to be called, Austin Cindric seems like the clear favorite to go to the 2. I mean, it just makes sense. Just put him in the 2 car. Why put him over in the 21 and put someone else in the 2 if you're already going to want to move him over there next year? Let's be honest. I think Team Penske was planning on opening a 4th team probably by 2023. I guarantee it. Maybe 2024. Just put him in the 2 now. Seriously, it's just easier. Don't get another driver to put there. Just put him in the 2 now. It makes more sense. Especially if Brad Keselowski's leaving. Now, if for some reason Brad Keselowski somehow stays, then put him in the 21. And that would change a lot of things in my prediction video. But it seems pretty likely that Keselowski's going to the 6. Which leads us into our next prediction, which the team is now called Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. Driver the number 6, I think, is going to be Brad Keselowski. Obviously not confirmed, but very likely. I think Keselowski wants to be a part owner next year. I think for long term, he wants to be involved in the sport, and obviously he owned a truck team. So to have partial ownership in Roush Fenway Racing, I think that's something Keselowski is going to want, and that's just going to be something that's going to be hard to turn down, especially next year with the next-gen cars, where likely some of the teams like Roush Fenway Racing are going to be a little more equal to the powerhouse teams on the Ford side. I mean, you can make the argument that Roush Fenway is already better than Stewart-Haas Racing, so who do they got left to chase down? Penske? Honestly, I don't even think it's that much of a downgrade for Keselowski. It is a little bit, but Keselowski's a good driver that I think his talent would be able to make up for the little bit of a downgrade there is. Plus, with next-gen cars, I think they're going to be evened out. Next car, Wood Brothers Racing's 21 car. I have Eric Almirola going here. This is a very similar situation to Paul Menard. Sponsorship. I think Smithfield follows Eric Almirola here. I think it's a better ride than where Almirola is now, but do I think Almirola makes the playoffs in this car? No. If he can't make the playoffs in Stewart-Haas Racing, which I don't know what's going on with Stewart-Haas Racing, He's been good there. I mean, you can't say Almirola's been horrible there. This year, obviously, he's been horrible, but that's not all his fault. It's just, I think it's time that Almirola goes to a new team, and this just makes the most sense. There's going to be an opening here at Penske if they decide to still get rid of De Benedetto. I think sponsorship and money-wise, it's the smart decision for Wood Brothers. Obviously, I think for driver talent, everyone would rather see Matt De Benedetto stay there than leave, but honestly, it just, money-wise, it just makes sense to put Eric Almirola in this car. And they could put Almirola in, like, the 2-car or something. That's another thing they could do, but like I said, just put Cindric in the 2-car now and cut your losses. Like, what's the point of putting him in the 21 and then move him over a year later? Just put him in now. I mean, he's already running part-time for Team Penske in the Cup Series this year. Now, with the amount of road courses on the schedule, he'll probably get a win next year, too. So, I think it's probably a safe bet just to put Cindric in the 2-car and then have Almirola go over to the 21 from Stewart-Haas Racing with sponsorship. The next team, the second team for 2311 Racing. I think the more consensuous number option a lot of people have been thinking is the 32. It's opposite of 23. But I think a number a lot of people are forgetting is, what was the other number Michael Jordan wore in his basketball career when he came back? 45. It just makes sense. That's the second number. And I think the driver of the 45 car for 2311 Racing is going to be Kurt Busch. I would have not expected this at the beginning of the year. I would have expected Kurt Busch is retiring, but Kurt Busch is very set on not retiring after this year, which is good for him. I'm glad he's still running. But Kurt Busch could be the bridge driver to whoever comes next out of that Joe Gibbs Racing stable, because they got a lot of young talent down there. Now, obviously, I think the Xfinity Series, Joe Gibbs Racing is going to have a full roster, so moving someone up might be tempting. But the reason why I no longer think that's the case for Joe Gibbs Racing is they've seen what's happened with Eric Jones and Daniel Suarez. They no longer have either driver. They do not want to rush this. So, Harrison Burton is probably the most cup-ready out of the guys in the Xfinity Series. I don't think they should move him up anymore. I thought at first they should, but now they've seen what's happened with Eric Jones and Daniel Suarez. They've lost them, which now they might get Eric Jones back in this Toyota thing. If Richard Petty Motorsports moves back to Toyota, he might go back to the Toyota family. But Joe Gibbs Racing does not want to lose these young talent guys, so I think leaving him in the Xfinity Series another year is probably the smart option. And moving over a veteran driver like Kurt Busch to help Bubba Wallace, who has obviously struggled this year, I think it works for all parties, because Kurt Busch is not having a good year at Chip Ganassi Racing. He will have a better year at a Toyota team. He just will. That's just what's going to happen. Toyota's going to figure it out. They already have it figured out. I mean, Joe Gibbs Racing is like the second best team behind Hendrick Motorsports. You can see that with Kyle Busch and Truex and Hamlin all having good runs. The next team that I have switching is the 47 of JTG Daugherty Racing. I don't think Stenhouse is going to come back, but he very well could. I don't think Stenhouse has proved enough for me to say that he should come back. Maybe Stenhouse will get a better ride too. Who knows? Which he shouldn't, but there's a good chance he probably will, because somehow he's staying in the Cup Series. But the driver of the 47 might come as a little bit of a shock. I have Josh Berry going to the 47. Now, hear me out. JTG Daugherty Racing has done something very similar to this before. Ryan Preece is the perfect example for that. Ryan Preece got to win the Xfinity Series with Joe Gibbs Racing, ran part-time. They saw enough out of him to put him in the Cup Series full-time. What is Josh Berry doing this season in the Xfinity Series? Running part-time and got a win. It just seems like JTG is going to want to make that move and put Josh Berry in this car. I mean, it all makes sense for that to possibly happen. Do I think he's Cup ready? Probably not, but I don't know if he's going to have an opportunity at JRM. I think JRM could have a very full roster, and I don't know what they're going to do with the 18, whether they want to make that a full-time team or still have part-time drivers in. If they want to make it part-time drivers, then I don't think there's opening room for Josh Berry, especially because we already know Sam Mayer is going to be running full-time in Xfinity Series next year, so will Justin Allgaier, Michael Annett. I mean, there's not that much room for Josh Berry. He's already won one Cup race before. He's run a Cup race before. So, obviously that doesn't make him ready, because it was just for Spire Motorsports. But I think JT Daugherty Racing has done it before, and wouldn't be shocked if they do it again. And Josh Berry, I think, would jump up at the opportunity to go full-time Cup racing. The next team, not going to talk about much because it's Rick Ware Racing. I think the 51 driver full-time will be Garrett Smithley. Why? I don't really know, because Cody Ware kind of sucks. I mean, Cody Ware does suck. Let's be honest with ourselves. Really, it's Rico Racing. Who cares? The next team is also Rico Racing. It's the 52 car. I don't even know. I guess Josh Bilicki ran it full time. So I think the 52 now turns to what the 53 and 15 was, and that's just multiple drivers. Honestly, Rico Racing, who cares? They're going to be the last 3 teams in the back all day. So who really cares? They just are they're hoarding charters again. They only got rid of one, I'm predicting, for next year. They need to get rid of more. Like, maybe NASCAR needs to implement a rule that the bottom team or bottom 3 teams have to give up their charter, which if they did, Rico Racing would be out of business, let's be honest, because that would screw them over. But a lot of people would be welcome to see that. Next team is Jra Motorsports, the 77 team. I think they're going to have a full-time driver next year. I don't think it's going to be Justin Haley. I think he's going somewhere else. You'll see that in a little bit. I think Ryan Preece makes the move over to Jra Motorsports. Originally, I had a different driver here, but with a Trackhouse Racing thinking they're going to go to 2 teams next year, that kind of changed who I had in this car. And I decided to put Ryan Preece in the car because I don't think JTG Racing brings back a second team next year. Not with a charter. Without a charter, there's no way they do it. I think it's very telling they're not going to. They skipped the Open. That's the benefit for JTG to bring back a car next year that's non-chartered. I mean, there's going to be a couple teams that are non-chartered that's going to be competitive, I think, next year. I just don't think JTG Racing is going to bring back a car next year. A second car. I think they still have one. The only reason why they had a second car, if we remember, was when Chris Buescher was driving the car, and they kept it open after he left. But I think they shut down that team, and I think Ryan Preece goes to Jra Motorsports. I don't think it's an upgrade by any means for Ryan Preece, but it's still a ride in the Cup Series, which originally I did not have him in until this kind of changed with the Trackhouse Racing team. Most likely could possibly go into a second team. I needed a driver for this team, and they could run multiple drivers. Jra Motorsports, I think, wants to have 2 full-time drivers, and they showed it this year with Justin Haley running the very majority of races and only had a couple other drivers run a few other races. The final team I have with a charter changing in 2022, that is Jra Motorsports running the 88 car, and I have Noah Gragson driving it. I don't know who else JRM would put in this car. They could put Allgaier, but I don't know if Junior Motorsports wants to do that. I don't know if they want to move Allgaier out of the Xfinity Series in the Cup. I just don't think Noah Gregson's ready for Cup, but I think he's the most likely option to get moved up to the Cup Series with Junior Motorsports next year. And they could struggle. I think Junior Motorsports with Noah Gragson next year is very possibly could struggle next year. But I think I look at all the drivers that Junior Motorsports could move up, and Noah Gragson is probably the most likely option because he's going to move up eventually. Why not move him up now? Because if you move Allgaier up and then Noah Gragson has a great year next year, then you're going to want to move him up, and then all of a sudden you're running 2 full-time teams, getting another charter, and I don't know if Junior Motorsports is ready to go to 2 full-time teams in 2023. Maybe they are. They want to eventually get up to 4 teams, but I think Junior Motorsports probably, if they do move up to Cup next year, is going to want to run 1 team for a while, and you don't want to risk losing Noah Gragson because I think he's a good driver. He's just had a lot of bad luck. So now on to the 2 non-charter teams I have going full-time that are of note. Maybe the 66 team runs full-time next year as non-charter, but I don't have them on here. I don't think they're going to run full-time. First team is the 16 of Colleague Racing. I don't think they're going to get a charter, but I don't think that's going to bother them. They're still going to run full-time, and I have Justin Haley driving that car. I think he's ready for Cup. I think I look at the drivers in the Xfinity Series, besides Austin Cindric, he might actually be one of the drivers more ready for the Cup Series. He's run several years in the Xfinity Series, and you look at the amount of experience he's getting in the Cup Series this year. I mean, he's doing pretty much what Ross Chastain did, which that hasn't really helped Chastain this year, but I think it's better to get those laps and not get those laps. I think if I had to look at Justin Haley and Noah Gragson, who I think would have a better year next year in the Cup Series, I would go with Justin Haley because I think that he's had more Cup experience and he's just more ready for Cup. They could put AJ Allmendinger in this car, but I don't think he's going full-time. I don't think he wants to go full-time in the Cup Series. I think they're going to open up a second team, maybe the 10 team, because Trackhouse Racing won't have that number, and use that as a part-time car for AJ Allmendinger. I just don't think he's going full-time Cup Series racing, because honestly, I don't know if that makes sense for AJ Allmendinger. I think he's happy where he's at, and just running a couple Cup Series races would be exactly what he wants to do. The final team I have as a non-charter team is Trackhouse Racing in the 97. And I have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. going there. Yes, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I figured I had to put Stenhouse somewhere, and originally I had him going to Jra Motorsports, but then the second team for Trackhouse Racing was rumored. I just figured might as well put Stenhouse here. Maybe Josh Berry goes to this team instead. Maybe even Kurt Busch goes to Trackhouse Racing. But honestly, if I'm Kurt Busch and I had an option between 2311 Racing and Trackhouse, even though they both looked very similar this year, I'd still go 2311 Racing because of that Toyota. And I think they're just going to be a lot better next year for 2311 Racing. Stenhouse, obviously, I think he's going to get kicked out of JG Daughter Racing. I think they're going to want to move on from him. So Trackhouse Racing is actually probably a step up from JTG. It's probably about the same for Stenhouse. He'd probably still run 20th in points. Let's just be honest with ourselves. So yeah, that's all my silly season predictions for the 2022 season. I hope you enjoyed. There's probably a lot you disagree with, and if you can let me know what your predictions are down in the comment section below, I will read that and check it out and see if I agree with what you said. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.